I'm Robert Phoenix, and over the last 8 years, I've been working with thousands of clients. And over that time, I've been perfecting the art and science of astrology. Many of these people have asked me, Robert, when are you going to put something together?
Oh, it's me. I could hear myself. Hey, we're live, everybody. So Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you. Give me 1 second here. Let me just pot down the volume.
By the end, you'll be
Hold on a second. There we go. Volume is potted down, and just make sure my other channels are.
Talking about
I can hear myself. Hold on. This is funny.
There's also
Okay, we're good. Let's see. Oh yeah, we got the graphic. We're live. We're good. I just keep hearing myself though. Hold on. Why is that?
Houses, planets,
Hold on.
signs, elements, aspects.
I'm not supposed to be hearing myself.
Minor, the astrology of relationships, the relocated chart.
Hold on. Let's
All
see.
the things that you need to use on a day-to-day basis with astrology for your own life, the lives of others, and the world at large.
Can you hear that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Not only do you get the course, but every month I'm going to have an
Got a little Mercury retrograde action happening apparently.
Oh, so you usually don't hear yourself in the background?
No, I usually don't hear myself, but it seems to be happening now. Let me do this. Let me just close a bunch of windows.
I was going to say, I wonder if maybe I have one open.
I think you might have your, yeah, maybe you want to mute, if you're on YouTube, mute me on YouTube.
It's going to be great. You get the lab work.
Yeah, you want to mute that. That's you, actually.
Webinar.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to do that now.
There's a little speaker down there at the bottom of the screen. There we go. Perfect. All right, we are live, and we've been working out a few kinks here and getting our game plan together. Let me check in with the chat. Let's see what we got in Chatlandia. There's Ani and Steve. Hey, Steve, and Fup and Beth. Hi, Beth. And Bonnie. Bonnie, you're right on time. You're not late. Hi, Heather and Matt. And let's see. We got a good. There's Isla. Hey, Isla. What's going on? So, hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Robert Phoenix. And let me just do a formal introduction since we're here at the beginning of the show. And normally what I do is I kind of like open the door and I rap a little bit so that people can show up and congregate. But our guest is sitting there very patiently. And I wanted to just bring her into the fold here and greet her. And LaFaye, it's great to have you back on the show. It's been a long time since we connected. I think it was back in the old Blog Talk Radio days, right? Okay, you gotta pump your volume up now. I gotta get you up.
Gotta get me up.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still hearing that background noise.
Yeah, because you're on my channel. So all you gotta do is there's a little volume underneath
people to do more.
The screen on YouTube. You just have to take that volume out.
Technology, squaring Venus to push people more.
Okay, I'm trying to.
And then the opposition to Neptune, where that intensity will get drained periodically by betrayal.
So it says live, and then there's that little speaker there.
So the only way that this is
on the screen for YouTube.
Understand, because when you're dealing with the 8th house, you're houses, water, deep water. Where is it coming out? Well, if you come out.
Okay, you say it says live.
Yeah, so it's right on the screen. It says live, and there's a little speaker icon. Just click on that.
Your thoughts tend to get serious.
Okay, I'm actually not seeing it. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Let's see, what can we do? Well, I guess we could hear me drone on and on for a while, but that's kind of boring. Let's see.
His work that's related to the transit of Saturn.
The only other thing I could think of would be for you to turn your. Here's what I would do. Just get out of YouTube for now. Just click out of YouTube for now. Are you out? Yeah, I stopped hearing me, which is good. Okay, you're there. I'm here. You ready? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? So what you want, go into your sound settings and make sure the volume is on the speaker on the sound setting. Yeah, I've lost your volume. Can you hear me okay? Hold on one second. I'm going to get out of here. Give me 1 second. Let me check on my end. Make sure everything's good for you. Yep, you should be good to go. Let's see. Yep. Lost LaFaye. So we're going to try is hopefully she'll chime back in and get the audio situation together. I think what happened was she had her audio for the YouTube channel up, and then was listening to me through that. I think it got a bit confusing. So I'm going to try to track her down over on Facebook and see if we can get this together here. Give me 1 sec. Do a little triage. I suppose I could put on some music. See what happens. No, if I put on some music, I'd get a copyright strike. Let me send her a text. Yes, it is almost Mercury retrograde, right? This is what happens with a little Mercury retrograde action. Give me 1 second here. How is everybody, by the way? Is everybody feeling a little bit of the Mercury retrograde buzz? All right, she's back in. Let's try this again. Here we go. Let's try it one more time. Hey, LaFaye, you there? Hold on.
I'm here.
Beautiful. Okay, I can hear you now. This is great. And then I got you as a panelist, and I'm going to give you some video rights here so you can get in and do the video thing. Give me 1 sec. Oh, there you are.
Hello.
That's perfect. We got it. Yeah. All right.
I heard about that, and I was also able to mute the YouTube stream that was in the background.
Great. Excellent. Well done. We just conquered Mercury retrograde.
I know, right? In Pisces, we're in.
You and I are both mutable signs, so we might get some of the brunt of this, huh?
Exactly, and it squares my natal Mercury.
Oh boy, you're gonna have some fun.
Yeah.
All right, let me get the graphic back up here. Put this together tonight. By the way, there's LaFaye's contact info, and we'll make sure that we get it out to you again throughout the show. LovingLaFaye@yahoo.com, and there's her number 336-618-7658, and she's open to readings. And LaFaye and I first connected. Wow, what was that? Maybe about six years ago on Blog Talk Radio or something like that. Is that right?
Probably about 7, more like 7.
7 years ago.
8 years ago, right?
Blog Talk Radio, and I gotta say that was a really fun and interesting time, and I was really hooked into a whole different community of astrologers. LaFaye was one of them, and there was Kair and Ra and a bunch of really smart and turned on people. And then the whole blog talk thing kind of went away, and went off and did separate stuff. But I always loved having LaFaye. I think I had you on 2 times. And, we talked about twin flames and twin souls and soulmates. And you wrote a book on twin flames as well, which is called Twin Flames. You want to show that to everybody?
Yes, Twin Flames Journey to Divine Partnership. And in this book, I explained the difference between karmic partners, soulmates, and twin flames, and what constitutes a karmic partner, soulmate, or twin flame, and the synastry that's connected with determining what relationship category you're in.
So we're going to get into all that. We're going to get into synastry, maybe dive into the midpoint composite. But I got to say, and I know LaFaye can keep a secret, but I can attest to her accuracy. She is an archer when it comes to this stuff. She definitely hits the bullseye when it comes to being able to get in and really kind of locate the emotional and the relationship material. And to be quite honest with you, get in and be able to put together this whole kind of twin flame and soulmate and twin soul kind of technology that astrology is able to provide. So why don't we get kind of, a little up close and personal, and let's find out more about you, LaFaye. Why don't you share with people your story with astrology and how you got to it and how it changed your life?
Well, astrology started off as a hobby as a teenager, about 13 years old. I was doing relationship compatibility based on sun signs and reading everything Linda Goodman published and other astrologers. And then in 1995, I had my first full natal chart reading. And that opened my eyes to, really what astrology is really about, more so than just the generalized sun signs. So that just made my thirst for astrology, my interest, my passion for it stronger, because my natal chart report was just so on point. And the astrologer, who is, can't call his name. He was local, body ecology here in Greensboro, and he took Art Henson. He took the time to break down everything in addition to the report, and I still have that report. And I studied and studied and studied it. And that helped me to see how beneficial astrology is to one's life, to navigate through life. Because at that time, I was going through my Saturn return. And so much was not making sense in my life at the time. And I just felt like, woe is me. And he helped me to make sense of it and empowered me to overcome some of the things that was going on at that time. So a few years later, 2000, more than a few years later, 15 years later, 2010, I decided to do it professionally. Prior to that, I was studying and getting certifications, et cetera. So I just recently celebrated my 10th anniversary as a professional astrologer on February.
That's awesome. What do you have, Saturn in Pisces?
Yes, yeah.
I remember when Saturn was in Pisces in 1995. Yeah, I was having a pretty interesting ride myself during that time.
I had a lot. It's my 6th house, and work was just such a hardship. I got laid off of a job I really loved. And, I had to take a job just to make ends meet. It was just a very difficult time. And, it was squaring my natal Sagittarius energy, sun, moon,
right.
So I was just going through it.
Right. And then you graduated, then you got an upgrade and you started doing astrology.
Yes. And I always tell my clients that legally one is grown or considered grown at 21, but astrologically not till you have your first Saturn return, because it really marks maturity.
It really is like the sort of the end of the city limits with adolescence and being a teen. It really does mark that major rite of passage, doesn't it?
Yes, really. Yeah. Because once I got through it, I became more responsible. I just felt more like I could just deal with, about anything in my life after I got through those hurdles, more confident,
Yeah.
just
Yep.
felt grown up.
What about the second Saturn return? Yeah, there are people who are watching this and they're saying, "Oh, well, I've just gone through my second Saturn return. I'm about to go through it." What are your thoughts on the second Saturn return?
Well, I'm not quite there yet, but the second one, if you have been diligently trying to be responsible, maintain a structure in your life. It just depends on how one has been conducting their life, how they've been handling their business. Saturn is the taskmaster. Saturn represents lessons, restrictions, discipline, structure, and it's the planet of karma. So if you are, naturally a disciplined person, everybody's chart is different. Some of us struggle with discipline. And I'm one of those people, meaning, following through. My mutable energy sometimes wants to deviate from the structured plan. But anyway, it just depends on how one has been conducting their life. But usually that second Saturn return, I see people are more conscientious because you're in that second half of your life.
Right.
And wanting to be more responsible, wanting to get more out of life, wanting to really toe the line to accomplish their goals before the sun sets.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's spot on. It's kind of where I am. I just went through my second Saturn return. So
Oh, okay. Saturn and Capricorn.
the Saturn in Capricorn, absolutely. First time didn't go so well. I was running from Saturn, but you can't really do that.
My twin flame has Saturn and Capricorn, so he's finishing up his Saturn return. Saturn leaves Capricorn in March.
Yeah.
So, but I've watched, to answer your question, I've kind of watched how he's conducted himself and some of the things he's dealt with. Sometimes that second Saturn return, some of the same themes from the first one resurface, but if you've grown and and you're trying to really take care of business, you handle things much differently.
Yeah, you're right, and I can attest to that.
Lighter.
Yeah, I can attest to that. So when did you start to get into the twin flame material, twin soul material, soulmate material? When did that start to pop for you?
Okay, well, as I said, I always was into astrology, but my spiritual awakening happened in 2009. And around 2010, about the same time I was launching my astrology practice, I got the twin flame call. And no name or face, I just knew. And I had really very little or heard very little about twin flames. Things were being channeled to me from divine spirit as to what a twin flame is. So I started researching, and what I was reading was confirmation to what, I was receiving from divine spirit. And so I began to prepare myself. So in my spiritual awakening, I've come out of karmic partnership. And it's funny, my twin flame and I, not funny, but very interesting. We were simultaneously ending karmic partnership, leaving religion, the church, all of that. We both was having these separate experiences, although we didn't meet until 2012. It started for us both, our spiritual awakening at the same time. So before you can draw in your twin flame, because it's a highly spiritual connection, you have to reconcile with your higher self. And I outline all of that in the book, the steps. But first of all, the twin flame calling, only only that person knows that they have that calling. A lot of people want it, but everybody's not called to it. So there are some variables that go with it. It's not a fantasy. It's, like I said, a highly spiritual relationship. It's definitely lots of spiritual attraction, emotional, affinity, but ultimately twin souls come together to be a mission, for the divine mission is to be a service to humanity.
So let's talk about the karmic part, because you've mentioned that before. What does that look like? Is that people get through sort of the challenges, the issues, working off other relationships with other people? What does that ensue?
Right. Karmic partners are those very challenging relationships. And the synastry is often rife with squares and oppositions, and Saturn is usually afflicted to the personal planets of the partner. So definitely look at Saturn first in a synastry just to rule out or confirm that it's karmic partnership. And, the old paradigm is phasing out and karmic partnership is phasing out with it. And I titled the book Twin Flames Journey to Divine Partnership, because twin flames don't, just because they reunite, don't automatically become divine partners. It's something they grow into as they merge into the whole soul. But the goal is to leave karmic partnership behind and to enter into union with your soulmate or reunion with your twin soul to develop divine partnership.
So the twin flame aspect is something that is a manifestation of two people coming together that have worked through their karmic partnerships. Do you have more than one twin flame, or is there only one twin flame?
There's only one twin flame, and twin soul and twin flame is the same thing. And twin flame is a reference to twin soul because the Kundalini fire ignites. Okay. Because twin souls, the chakras align and connect. Now, soulmates can master certain chakras together, but twin souls, all the chakras align, and that Kundalini fire ignites. But karmic partnership, like I said, is very challenging synastry. Soulmates, they're very favorable synastry charts. Saturn's not afflicted, and they're the ones that come together and very supportive to each other. And you can have more than one soulmate. You can have more than one karmic partner. Usually people experience multiple unions and karmic partnership and soulmates because they can be not only lovers, but friends and family and associates. But you only have one twin soul, and that's the divine feminine or divine masculine counterpart to your soul to merge with for the whole soul.
I remember a long time ago, one of my first spiritual teachers talked about how he had connected with his twin flame, but they were not together. They were not in physical third dimensional partnership with one another. And he was okay with that. And that, I guess on some level, their souls were kind of conjoined and doing what they needed to do. Is it important for you or a person to be in physical contact with their twin flames, or can they still exist and work on something together but not be together?
I've witnessed twin souls fulfill their mission or work on their mission, and they're at a distance from each other. They're in different states or different countries from each other because we have the internet. Right. They may come together, periodically in the physical. It just depends on the twin soul's mission. And, we have multiple lifetimes with our twin souls. So it just depends on what level twins they are too. Most twins that have reunited since 2012, and that's when my twin flame and I connected, are here to usher in the new age. We're here to, assume our stations and do our work and our mission to help others raise the vibration, of the earth and just make the world.
So you think that historically this is a time now where this convergence of twin flames is actually accelerating?
Yes, most definitely. But to also answer your question about do they need to be together physically, I want to say this too. Once again, it's a highly spiritual relationship, and sometimes both partners are not on that spiritual level. And so one partner may have to just go on their own, and and hopefully the other partner will catch up, and they can eventually come together in the physical as well. And like I said, sometimes there's obstacles financially or whatever, as far as them, if they're in different parts of the world or the country, for them to actually be able to cohabitate together. But if one, and I see this a lot, sometimes one is just not as mature, spiritually mature, and it's usually the masculine counterpart. Right. Divine feminine, she guides the relationship. And I usually tell, because I do twin flame guidance readings, and I usually tell the divine feminine counterpart that she should continue, and it's in my book too, raising her vibration, fulfilling her, spiritual mission, because we have individual, callings, and we merge those gifts and calling together for our combined mission in service to humanity. So, and then sometimes it can be the feminine counterpart that's just not ready yet. Some still have one leg in karma or a karmic partnership, and they have to work it out. But you usually, to get out of karmic partnership, you really must be doing the spiritual work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes some sense. You and I were talking about dating apps and online dating services, and how this social media has impacted one's ability to find another person, whether it's a twin flame or a soulmate. Do you think, in your mind, that these technologies have accelerated this process, or does it make it more difficult?
Yes, definitely accelerated, and has made it more less difficult.
Less difficult. Okay.
Yeah, less difficult, because the online apps and social media has really helped soul families come together. And twin souls are usually the heads of their own soul families. Mm-hmm. Spirits, people who come to help them or follow them or grow with them in their mission. Okay, so the internet has really made it easier to do that, and easier for them to connect. And there's a whole lot of karmic stuff going on too with the dating apps, but it just depends on the level of spiritual maturity one has. And if you have the twin flame calling, as you evolve, you're going to energetically draw in your twin soul.
Let me ask you another question. Do you think that twin flames / twin souls can be same sex, or are they generally male female? What's your take on that?
Generally male female, masculine.
Interesting.
Energy.
So what would you say? What would you say to two people that would say, well, I feel excluded. How can I get my twin flame experience?
Good question. And I've dealt with this, and I've read for same-sex couples. Same-sex couples are either karmic or soulmate. Twin souls, and not trying to exclude them, it's just the way that it's set up. Some are highly evolved soulmate unions, and are really doing good things, to raise the vibration of our planet. But the true twin flame dynamic is male-female.
Masculine, feminine, in the sort of the truest of the biological sense.
Have the, the masculine, feminine too, but right in the biological sense too.
Right.
So the merging of the chakras and the Kundalini.
That's interesting. I never thought about that until now, and I thought, well, this would be kind of maybe of interest to some people, somebody that's listening. What else I want to ask you? Here's a question I wanted to ask you. It doesn't have much to do with the twin flame stuff, but you're based in North Carolina. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. The South generally is a pretty religious area. You had your break from religion. How do you deal with that locally? How do you answer questions of people say, oh, that LaFaye, she's into the witchcraft? Or How do you work with that? I'm curious.
Well, I deal with it a lot better now than when I first started. Looking back on, 2009, my spiritual awakening and coming out of the church. Because when I was in the church, I was in, because I'm a Sagittarius and we're truth seekers.
Yep.
And, it just wasn't feeling right anymore. I wanted more. And I'm praying to God, creator source, for knowledge to reveal things to me. And that third eye opened and there's no, closing it. So anyway, I used to defend myself as an astrologer and my spiritual beliefs, but I don't anymore because some people are just not going to get it. Their pineal glands are calcified and they're just not there. Most people, like I said, a lot of people started their spiritual journey, if they wasn't already. There was a big wave in 2012 of soulmates coming together, people phasing out of karmic partnership, soulmates coming together, twin souls coming together, and people as individuals just really, embarking on their spiritual journey if they hadn't already. And those who were already, there are even more enlightenment for them. So I just try to not try to bring them in. If they ask me questions, I answer, as best I can. If they reject it, I just let them be where they are.
Well, that's a really interesting, how do I say it, dynamic contrast, because I live here in Texas, which is pretty Christian and fundamental too. And people will ask me what I do sometimes. And I have to kind of size them up a little bit. Do you size people up, right?
Oh, yes. And my twin flame, he outs me all the time. And I was like, I didn't even want them to know. Yeah. He loves to tell people, she's an astrologer.
Oh.
And he's really into astrotheology too. And that's part of our combined mission. But yeah, you kind of fill it out who to, be really open with. And not that I hide, but, don't cast your pearls to swine. It's not for everybody. But I'm very blessed to be a part of a spiritual metaphysical community, kindred spirits, where I do readings at. I do at Eclectic by Nature every Friday. So I do in-person readings there, and I get to meet a lot of people, kindred spirits, and the staff as well, and other readers. So that's, a plus. And I love connecting with other astrologers just to speak the language. And that's another good thing about the internet, about modern technology too. We might not have those connections in our physical, communities or whatever, but we can go online and go in these Facebook groups or whatnot and Instagram, and there's our people, that's our tribe. And we're able to, express ourselves without persecution.
I know it's a real wonderful thing. It's a real blessing to be able to have that. And even the eclectic kind of piece, like you and I probably would not have crossed paths without Facebook and Blog Talk Radio. It's a pretty cool thing. We just had Valentine's Day. As an astrologer, especially somebody that specializes in synastry, do you notice that there's an uptick for you during that time to do readings?
Oh, definitely. Love is in the air. I did a lot of readings Friday at Eclectic by Nature, and most of them was relationship oriented. Either the relationship has gone sour and they want to know, should I let it go? And I love what I do because I give people clarity. I give them their relationship blueprint. Now free will, they do what they want with it, but at least they have the proper insight on what they're working with. So I helped a lot of people this Valentine's Day that were really at a crossroads in a relationship. And some I confirmed that, yes, this is your soulmate, continue on in it.
So we have a kind of a peak interest around Valentine's Day. Is there a heartbreak season astrologically that you've noticed? Is there a certain time of year where people come to you with more sorrow than other times?
No, not really. And you know what? Relationships pretty much is the theme year round. Everybody wants to be mated. And on my logo, it says, when the soul is ready, its mate will appear. So I help people, okay, if your soulmate is eluding you and you're tired of karmic partnership, it's time to work on you. And I outline that in the book. You know, you have to reconcile with your higher self and raise your vibration to be able to attract that soul counterpart on a positive level. Karmic partnership is for lessons to learn and teach. We can't avoid those. We need those in our lives.
Yeah.
Saturn represents lessons, you know, to learn and teach. And in the planet of karma, we all have Saturn somewhere, and our Saturn connects with others, synastry, you know, in a certain way that determines whether it's karmic or soulmate. Soulmates are very supportive. Soulmates can be in a romantic relationship, marital union, and it kind of falls apart on a romantic level and still be friends and continue to be supportive with each other. I see that a lot. Doesn't mean they live happily ever after. We can experience multiple soulmates. And karmic partners, the thing with that, you experience multiple karmic partnerships on a romantic level because one may end, but you didn't get the lessons.
Right.
You didn't apply the lessons to your soul growth. So you repeat it. You attract yet another karmic partner that you're going to get some of those same lessons until you have your aha moment. It's not them, it's me. Meaning they have their issues, yes, but it's you. You can only change you. You can only deal with you. You can only, you know, evolve yourself. And a lot of people want to fix the other person or blame the other person. And see, and that's when they go in that karmic merry-go-round. They just keep repeating the same thing with different partners.
Repeat, rinse, all that sort of thing. Yeah. I was going to ask you, somebody had asked a question, I think it was in the comments section from Friday's show. Can you have a twin soul or a soulmate inside of a family? Like, can a brother or a sister or a son or a daughter have that kind of relationship?
Yes, you know, there's family members that just rub us the wrong way. I look at the synastry as karmic. I've done it for myself. And astrology is just the truth. It just gives you so much insight, and it helps not take things so personal. You know, it is what it is, or this is why it is, and this is how I can, you know, navigate through it or overcome it. But yes, we can have family members that are karmic partners, meaning they really challenge us. But the challenge is for ultimately for growth as well. But sometimes we have to eventually, especially if you're spiritually awake, you have to detach even from those family members because they're, you know, can be toxic situations, as well as once you become spiritually awake, you know, the goal is to be, you know, coming out of karmic partnership. And most people who are spiritually awake cannot continue to go on. That happened for me, and as well as for my twin soul and many others that I've read for. But yes, we have family members that are soulmates that we just get along so well with, really close. And they're supportive, and we're supportive of them. So yes.
What about, and I've seen this before with charts, where a family member, maybe in this lifetime, they're, say, mother and son, but in another lifetime, they've been husband and wife. I mean, can be very conflicting and confusing, don't you think?
Yes, most definitely. And I can tell in the synastry chart when people have had past lives together. Usually soulmates and twin souls have. Some karmic partners is like something was unresolved, and so they had to pick it back up in this lifetime. But yes, the roles are reversed. Also, genders can also change in different incarnations.
Sure. Yeah, I've run across that as well. I always find that the moon is the connecting link in a lot of ways between generations. You know, one parent and the child has I just see all this constellation around the moon when it comes to families. Have you noticed that as well?
Well, the moon is very important in all relationship dynamics because it's our emotional needs and responses, and the ego lives in the emotional body. So that's one of the most challenging ones. And you know, the saying in astrology is Venus and Mars will get you in the bedroom, but the moon determines how you get along in the rest of the house. And
Right.
so the moon is very important in relationship astrology.
Yeah. I had one client one time, an amazing kind of connection in a very unusual aspect. She has a moon Uranus conjunction, which is fairly unusual. Daughter has the same thing, moon Uranus conjunction. Like, what are the odds with that? I mean, it's an unusual aspect to begin with, but now we have a mother daughter working that same thing out.
Mm-hmm.
One other question I wanted to ask before we get into these charts. We're about ready to go into Mercury retrograde. How have you noticed Mercury retrograde impacting relationships?
Well, a lot of times couples tend to revisit some things that maybe they just kind of put on hold. Maybe it was at a stalemate in communication, and here comes dear old Mercury retrograde, gonna, dig it back up. And it's a time to resolve issues. It's time to maybe reflect on past behavior,
Right.
with made. And Mercury retrograde is always the prefix RE with words reassess, reevaluate situations. But yes, sometimes I find Mercury retrogrades to be favorable when the relationship is good. Now, karmic partners usually Mercury retrogrades, make things more challenging for them.
Right. Well, we put together a few charts here. Some of you had responded to the call, and we've got 3 charts that we put together, or I put together, and LaFaye did a little bit of work on them. So I'm going to pull up chart 1 here, so you're going to be able to see it. But you've got some notes on this one.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Oh, great. So I don't have to got it up on the screen here. Well, the first thing that caught my eye was that his North Node conjuncts her Venus. So that's fated. That was something that they were meant to cross each other's path.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a strong drawing to a strong attraction.
And for people that aren't aware of this is a chart. This is a synastry chart. And do you want to just maybe give people like a little soundbite on synastry?
Okay, synastry is 2 persons' charts coming together. You are on the screen here. In the red, the outer chart is the male's chart. The inner chart is the female's chart.
Correct.
And so we're reading how one's planets connect or relate to the other's planets. And we're dealing with aspects such as conjunctions, powerful squares, challenging, bringing tension. Those are the shorter red lines, and the longer red lines are oppositions. They can polarize or balance. And the blue lines, the longer ones are trines, are very harmonious. The shorter blue lines are sextiles. They bring opportunities. We say when the planets are having sex, that's good that's good energy for us. But overall, it's the relationship blueprint of how 2 people will interact with one another.
Well, let's jump back here. Thank you for that. Let's jump back in. You were talking about his true node in Aries, an aggressive sign, very masculine.
Yes.
Check it in over here.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's checking in with this Venus-Saturn conjunction.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. This Venus-Saturn conjunction, this is a person individually that really likes to commit in relationship. And being in a conjunction with the partner's North Node, like I said, it was destiny. It was fated. And it makes a nice trine to the partner Saturn. So you've got Saturn trine Saturn. So that eliminates to a certain degree the karmic, the karmic connection. And also is good for, good communication too. But the thing, the unfavorable aspects, I was talking about the moon earlier, how the moon will determine how you get along in the rest of the house. Her moon is in opposition to his Saturn and Mercury. And then we have his moon in opposition to her Mercury. That's some very poor communication. And a lack of emotional connection. So this relationship, long-term, I assess it, it's not per se a karmic partnership, but it's one of those soulmate blueprints. And I do have 3 levels for those. And this would be level 1, a weaker one is better for friendship. It's not really, good. The emotional bond is a little too weak for longevity in this year.
Right. Then he's got this Sun Uranus conjunction right here with her 8th house. Right. And that can be very intense and very sudden, but not always, long term. Correct, with Sun Uranus there.
Right. And then it could be on and off again type of energy in a relationship. Not consistent. But one thing here, his Chiron is in Gemini, loosely conjunct her moon. In some ways, she's a healing balm to him. But like I said, the emotional affinity is, a little weak there. And her, it was another, hold up, let me look. Oh, another reason why I said friendship as well is because of the sun sextile sun. Yeah, her sun in Pisces is sextile his sun in Capricorn, and that's good for friendship.
Right. So decent flow. That's an interesting conjunction there. He's born right in the center of that Neptune Uranus with, I guess that's Uranus in Sag and then Neptune in Capricorn, correct? Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, and Uranus conjunct his ascendant. This guy, it's not going to be hard to,
So just to be clear, we didn't have his birth time, so I gave him a sunrise chart. So we're just looking at his effects on her in the center. But still, with a Sun Neptune Uranus conjunction, this is an individual who likes to live by his own rules, right?
Right. It's hard to make him really commit to in a relationship. It's hard to make this guy really commit or to be consistent in a relationship. You never know when he's gonna break off and do his own thing. That's why I said it's kind of a on again, off again thing romantically. So it's a lot better friendship.
What's your experience with moon sun oppositions? We're not quite opposite, but we're opposite signs. Moon in Gemini here, sun in Sag, late Sag over here. Is there a connection or is there an attraction with those oppositions?
Well, with sun moon oppositions, it tends to the sun person tends to just kind of be clueless of how the moon person really feels. It's kind of hard to read them emotionally for the sun person.
That's an interesting take. So they're kind of doing their thing.
The person feels emotionally misunderstood.
It's interesting, very interesting. That's an interesting take. Okay, why don't we move on to the to this next chart? This was chart 2, and
You gonna pull it up?
Yep, right
Oh,
there. Yeah, what do you think about this chart?
now this one, there's a lot of physical passion here. His Mars conjuncts her sun, a lot of passion and attraction. And her Venus trines his Mercury, a lot of, affectionate talk, love talk. And Mercury trine his Saturn is, supportive and stable communication here. And her Jupiter and Sag is trying his moon, so there's an emotional bond there. But on the unfavorable aspect, his sun squares her moon. And he finds her a little too cool on an emotional level. His sun is in Scorpio. Scorpio is very intense, passionate sign. And moon in Aquarius is rather emotionally detached, So I would say he feels like he can't really, connect with her on a deep level.
And the tricky part here is that these are fixed signs too.
Yes.
So when somebody's trying to get something out of the other person and they're not available, and you get into that fixed sign, you get locked in on that thing, and that can be very difficult.
Mm-hmm. But with this one, Saturn's not afflicted with the personal planets from one partner to the other. It is a soulmate blueprint. However, this one just seems like, I don't want to put it, it also maybe would be better on a friend level rather than romantic partners. Now, me not having the information of how long they've been together, are they married? Because there's different variables here. It's, it's the same blueprint, but it just depends on the circumstances too, of how I would advise them, to navigate their relationship blueprint.
So apparently, this relationship is quite difficult, and a great degree of attraction, but also a great degree of stress and conflict.
Right, that's that his sun square her moon most definitely. And also I see her Uranus conjuncts his Venus and Jupiter in Libra, sign of relationships. So that's also a very rocky, shaky situation there.
Yeah, that seems quite unstable in a lot of ways right here. Right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Unstable.
There's one aspect here I wanted to get your take on this. The Saturn-Neptune opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how would you interpret that?
Well, first of all, they have karmic debt between them because they got the Neptune conjunction. Neptune represents karmic debt, and Saturn is, karmic lessons. So, they're together to offset, to complete that, it's a past life connection, that some things that needs to be resolved in this lifetime.
So if this person wanted to get out of this relationship or end this relationship, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, also that her Venus square his Neptune, that's some, romantic, disillusionment there. Maybe they had rose-tinted glasses, they saw the partner, idealistically initially, and as time went by, then they become disillusioned with the relationship. But I would advise, if they wanted to break up. Now, like I said, you said it's very troubled. However, this would actually be one of those that's kind of hard to break away from, although it has that, that kind of unstable effect too, because it does have some very pleasant, aspects between them, some things that really work between them.
Like crazy wild makeup sex?
Yeah, that Mars conjunct Sun. Yeah, it's
I
definitely.
hate you. I love you. I hate you. I love you.
And then Scorpio, it's intense energy. He may be the one that's more reluctant to let go. Now she, looking at her by herself, she's the type of person that she wants a lover and friend. She wants both. I think I put that down in my notes about her. But oh no, that was the next person. But anyway, so she would probably be good with them, becoming just friends and being there for each other. Like I said, with that first blueprint, that's better friends than romantic partners.
I want to ask you a question. His sun is in a very dominant position on her midheaven,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do you work with that kind of energy? Like this to me would almost be like if they were having difficulties, especially in Scorpio, this would almost be like stalker energy in some ways.
Right.
Like
That's what I said. He's more reluctant to let go.
yeah, definitely. Okay. All right. The other chart that we had is just a single chart. And this is a person who is actually looking to get some insight into relationships and the nature of relationships for their life. So I brought that up, and there we go. That's what we're looking at now.
Now, I assess her as someone who well, because she has that Sun, Mercury, and North Node in Aquarius, she needs that person that's her lover and her friend. She needs someone that she can be creative with, have fun, think out the box with. So she needs that type of energy in her life. She also, with that Virgo moon that's opposing her Venus in Pisces, she needs a partner who's emotionally sympathetic, one who's emotionally tuned to kind of ease her anxiety, because she does struggle with her role in relationships, or whether or not she can truly, or whether she truly, is meant to have that soulmate. Because, her moon in Virgo can be a lot of negative self-talk. I find moon in Virgo to have, be anxious, critical.
Hard moon, tough place for the moon.
Right, a little analytical, too much, and it opposes her Venus. So sometimes she can actually sabotage herself in relationships.
This is an interesting T-square here with Jupiter getting involved as well. It's almost like there's great expectations, but also great anxiety too.
Yeah, exactly. Because the moon squares her Jupiter. That's why she needs somebody who can talk her down, can soothe her emotionally. And then with the Venus in Pisces, Venus in Pisces is, definitely capable of the unconditional love and the self-sacrificing energy. However, she can sabotage relationships with that opposition, her moon.
Now, what do you think is Mars and Aries in the 8th house?
Very passionate.
Totally, right? There's a lot of passion here in this chart.
Sex is very important to her. Intimacy. It's very important to her. She's rather impulsive, or can be in that area. So that may be something she wants to hold back on to make sure the relationship, is compatible.
Right.
But with her energy in Aquarius, she is the type, and it does square her Mars. She kind of puts herself in a position to be friends with benefits.
Friends with benefits. I can see that. Here's somebody that's going to have Mercury going retrograde in their 7th house.
Right. So past lovers going to resurface, wanting to reach out and touch. That could possibly be the case.
And here's another interesting, I didn't put the transits in, but over the next couple of years, she's going to have Neptune on her Venus.
Oh, now when Neptune connects with her Venus, that could possibly bring her soulmate.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. Yep, not quite there yet, but getting close. Okay, let me check in with the chat room. Let's see where people are at and what they're thinking about, talking about. Just turn this on. Thanks for doing my chart before this one. Oh, you're welcome. How about that? Good timing. Let's see. Darcy said, I moved 1,600 miles away because that effort could not let go. Drastic. Hey, sometimes these things call for drastic measures, huh?
Yeah.
Let's see. Moon in Virgo is such a gift healer energy, though. Can be, I guess, if you can reconcile with it. Let's see what else. You guys have any questions for LaFaye? Any questions around twin flames, soulmates, anything astrology related with synastry? It's your time to ask her. Well, we've got her on the show here. So we got. I wanted to ask you about composite charts. I really like both synastry and composite charts. And composite chart, I feel like, really gets to the potential of two people together. You want to talk a little bit about composite charts?
Now, with my twin flame guidance reading, I do the synastry and the composite chart because the composite chart helps me to see them as the whole. So, and I practice spiritual astrology. And then the synastry chart, the relationship blueprint, the relationship compatibility, and whether or not they are indeed. And I always say potential twin flames. I do not confirm twin flames. I let them know that they potentially favorable, but like I said, it's a spiritual calling. It's something that only those individuals can truly confirm for themselves, but I can definitely rule it out if they just don't have the the markers to be potential souls.
So this year we're going to have Venus retrograde in Gemini, and we're going to have Mars retrograde in Aries. I think it's the first time in a long time they've both been retrograde in 1 year. Mm-hmm. What do you make of this Venus retrograde in Gemini coming up? I think
Gemini is the sign for twins. Gemini and twin souls. There's usually something, Gemini markers or whatever, kind of to confirm the twin flame, or transits in Gemini as to when they come together. Like when my twin soul and I came together, was a lot of Gemini energy, June 2012. But Venus retrograde in Gemini is definitely helping twin souls reunite.
Interesting. So that's an interesting component to this upcoming retrograde. Let's check in with the chat room, see if they've got any questions. Let's see. Is there a gold standard for a twin flame connection in a synastry chart? So Jennifer asked, if you're going to look for one or two things in a synastry chart, what should they be looking for?
Okay, for twin souls, is that what she said?
Twin soul, that's right.
Okay, well, first of all, they don't share karma together, so Saturn is not afflicted in any way.
So there's no Saturnian affliction at all?
Right.
Okay. Get Saturn out of the way.
That's the first marker, and the moon has to be well aspected too.
Well, moon, same sign, what do you think?
Well, my twin soul and I, we have an exact moon conjunction in Sagittarius.
There you go. That's quite telling, isn't it?
Yes. And I see that in other, or if not exact, the moon is well aspected, trine, sextile, it's just, every blueprint is different, as you know, but there are certain markers or certain planets that, have to get along with each other.
Now, is your sun and your moon in your third house?
Yes, and Mercury.
Right. So the whole twin thing comes up for you with the third house as well, being the third house being the ruler of Gemini. So it's a natural place for you to explore astrology
I have
with.
North Node in Gemini as well. I have North Node and Jupiter in Gemini.
There you go. So you're gonna have a nodal return this year, huh?
Yeah.
Or if not this year, next year. Well, this is gonna be
because it's in Cancer now. I had one.
yeah.
I've already had it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. Let me see if there's anything else here in the chat. What do we got? Soulmates. You got any soulmate aspects? Is that where Saturn can come into play? I mean, or is there a lot of different aspects where soulmates can kind of come together?
Yes, soulmates have a lot of different variables, but once again, Saturn is not afflicted.
So in both instances, Saturn's not afflicted with a soulmate?
Well, with the soulmate, sometimes there may be one aspect that Saturn's unfavorable, but then there's another to counteract that. I see that a lot. But soulmates, there's a strong supportive theme in their charts.
Okay, so you've got Sun and Moon in Sagittarius, right?
Yes.
Mercury in Sagittarius, correct?
Yes.
And with that configuration, you'd also be very intuitive, as well as working with astrology. How much does intuition come into your work when you're reading a chart?
How much is my spiritual gifts? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, your intuition. Like, okay, you know that a chart, there's X, there's Y, and there's Z. But then there's like this other thing, like the intuition.
It's hard to explain, but I love it when it kicks in. It really takes over, and I just see.
Right.
Past the aspects, or the aspects just, jump out at me, and I really read. And sometimes I do card spreads as well. The common cards, the Black Moon astrology cards give me more clarity and insight, because as you know, synastry charts can, there's all sorts of variations of synastry charts. So, but soulmates, that soulmates have pleasant aspects, favorable aspects between them. And if Saturn's afflicted, like with one person planet, there's maybe two more favorable aspects with Saturn that supports it. So, with soulmates, there may be a tinge of karma, that they help each other work too. But the difference in karmic partnership and soulmates, if there is, like Saturn is square Mercury, so there's a challenge with communication, but they have this other favorable, things. Maybe Saturn is trine Venus, so that's longevity and love, supportive and love. They will work through it, through the challenge. But karmic partner, excuse me?
They can work through some of that stuff, right? They've got Saturn trine to Venus, even though they have the square to Mercury, they've got some endurance and longevity there.
Yes. So supportive, and the moon, once again, the moon is, if it's like, and affliction to the moon with one person planet, but then there's other more softer connections with the moon, then they can overcome.
What do you make of Venus oppositions in charts?
Now, Venus oppositions, that can actually, I don't read those as unfavorable, because oppositions can balance or polarize. Sometimes the two partners may have very different tastes, but they can meet in the middle, blend it together, opposites attract, that type of thing.
Right. Let's put your graphic back up here so people can get another glimpse at your information. Let's do that.
May I read a couple excerpts from my book?
Absolutely.
Okay, I had highlighted something here. And in the book, I do share examples, synastry examples of what karmic partnership is. Some of the aspects, what I did was I shared my aspects, my synastry aspects with my former karmic partner, as well as my twin soul and his synastry aspects with his former common partner to give a good idea of what common partner is. And then I shared our synastry.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so people will know what's favorable, what to look for, similarities for our potential.
That's brave of you.
Okay, common partnership here. Common partnerships are those challenging relationships we encounter with lovers, family, and associates. And as with soulmates, we can experience many of these karmic ties. These relationships help us balance our karma and pay our karmic debts because our soul has a deep yearning to be free. The karmic ties are very strong, and it's usually a very strong physical connection. And we find ourselves compelled to enter these, even though we know it's going to be challenging. And that's because on a soul level, we need those lessons to grow. Our karmic partner serves mirrors for our own destructive behaviors. And I said earlier, sometimes you play the blame game, it's the other person, and people fail to look at themselves in the mirror. And usually karmic partners are a mirror of ourselves in a lot of regards. Let me get to some of the twin flame stuff here. I grabbed a copy that didn't have my flags. Sorry about that. And ultimately, I spoke about divine partnerships. Soulmates and twin souls can develop divine partnership. And as we move into the new paradigm, the new age of Aquarius, many soulmates and of course twin souls will be doing powerful spiritual works to raise the vibration of the planet. The age of Aquarius. Aquarius is tolerance, unity, being in service to humanity. Hang on here, feel a little, here we go. Twin flames or twin souls share the same energetic essence. Together, they are a perfect match for chakra alignment and igniting of the Kundalini fire. As an astrologer, I knew there had to be an astrological explanation behind how two people could be so compatible and content with one another. And I'm glad I came across that paragraph because not every astrologer, and this Robert, can also connected with the soul connections. This is a synastry blueprint for soul. And I just feel like divine spirit just gifted me with that ability. So
yeah, again, look at where your sun, moon, and Mercury are. They're in the third house.
And
so
clairvoyant as well.
Also twins
together, and these things just jump out at me as to what relationship category. And I was compelled to write the book. Not only to highlight the twin flame journey, but to help people understand, bring clarity to what the difference, the three spiritual categories of relationships. Because you got people in karmic partnership thinking they're twin flames, or soulmates, and soulmates thinking they're twin flames. So each one has its own agenda, but they're all necessary. Now we can have our twin soul, but we also have soulmates in our lives, not on a romantic level with twin soul, but we need all three of these relationships to help us grow, help us evolve on the soul level.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's the trinity of emotional and spiritual growth. Here's LaFaye's contact info if you want to get in touch with her. LovingLaFaye@yahoo.com. And she's even got a phone number that you can reach her directly at. Don't call her right after the show, though. I'm sure she's going to want to have some time with her twin flame, or leave a message if you do, right?
Right. Wait till tomorrow. And you can find me on Facebook, LaFaye Farrar.
Yeah. And so our links are kind of connected up there together. I've got her show on my page, and vice versa. So you can find her there
I
through
also
Facebook.
have a professional page, Soul to Soul Synastry. That's my brand.
That's your brand. Good. That's a good
Soul to Soul
brand.
Synastry.
Well,
Now we can talk a little bit about my synastry aspects with my twin soul, if you like to.
you want to break some of that out?
If you want me to, yes. Well, I already said we have that exact moon conjunction. And in breaking that down, it said Jock and LaFaye can relax in the knowledge that they are compatible on an emotional level. Instinctively, they feel comfortable in each other's company. They know how each other feels and are willing to consider their loved ones' feelings. And I'm gonna tell you, that moon conjunction is like our saving grace. You know, it's because now his moon is in the 12th. And you put my energy in his 12th house, you know, he's been my man in, you know, past lives. That's our
Right.
connection.
Oh, yeah.
But that emotional connection is like, that's where everything just comes together.
Well, it's the house of the soul, right? The 12th house is the house of the soul.
Mm-hmm. But that moon conjunction, even when there's, you know, things that are going on and we may be at odds, because you know, twin flames, some people, it's not a romantic fantasy. We're still people, we're still humans. We get in our ego sometimes, we try not to be, you know, and the ego lives in the emotional body. That's why I said that's our saving grace, because on an emotional, you know, we have that emotional bond, and emotionally we feel the same way about things, because both our moons are in Sagittarius, so we relate the same.
Right.
Emotionally. Although his in the 12th house, he can hide his feelings, or he's more reserved with his feelings.
Right.
Mine is the 3rd house. I'm with it. I'm very expressive.
You're talking about it. You're processing those.
Right.
You know, I've been with a few people who have moon in Gemini, and boy, do they like to talk about their feelings.
Most definitely. And we also have moon conjunct the sun, and that's very good for friendship. You know, really great combination. And it says LaFaye believes her identity and individuality are likely to be enhanced by the association. She is likely to be the more dominant person in the relationship, however, receives emotional support from Jock. And I do feel very emotionally supported by him, but he also feels the same because we have that moon conjunction. And Jock's moon conjuncts my Neptune as well. And we have his sun sextiles my moon. And we have sun sextile sun. And Jock's sun conjuncts my ascendant. And we have Mercury sextile Mercury. There's a lot of good positive stuff. It's a lot more positive than negative. Like I said, we don't have any afflictions to Saturn. And my Venus trines his Venus trines my Jupiter. If you want me to, we can break some of these down and just give an example of.
That's a great aspect. Venus, Jupiter trine. That's fantastic.
Right. You know,
you would give him some freedom to kind of be a little bit there with that Venus, Jupiter trine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That'd be a man, right?
Right. His individuality. Now, one thing we do have is, and I'd like some input from you on this, our Mars opposition. He has Mars in Cancer, and I have Mars in Capricorn.
Well, I think that's actually good. I think that you guys bring something to get. Mars in Cancer needs some level of security, right? It needs some level of security, and that Mars in Capricorn that's the Earth, right? I mean, once you get together, the whole thing with two opposite Mars is just getting together. And once you get together, then you've got some fertile ground there. Mm-hmm. And I think it's actually a really, really good opposition.
But when we're at odds on something, and that's why I said our moon conjunction is our saving grace, because, I mean, we're like each other's match. Our will, like we have met our match. You know, Mars and Capricorn is a strong placement.
It is pretty dominant.
Mars and Cancer is no joke either. So sometimes we can lock up, you know, but the oppositions, they can balance or polarize. We balance more than we polarize. But
right.
We do have polarizing moments, but they don't last long.
So the one thing I do know about Mars and Cancer, since I happen to have Mars and Cancer.
Oh, okay. Enlighten me more.
So is that the emotional output is on and off? It's on and off, right? It's like tidal. You know, when it's on, it's on. Like soak it up. When it's off, kind of let go and be in his crab shell, right? I mean, this is what I found with Mars and Cancer. It's very cyclical in a lot of ways. Very protective of you, obviously.
Yes.
Of your reputation. So just catch him with his cycles, right? And when he's on, just bring him in. And when he, you know, is Mr. Grumpy, let him go do his thing.
And that's just it. Sometimes, you know, I poke the bear.
You want to poke that bear, huh?
Yeah, sometimes you know, rather than just letting him. And then I remember, because, you know, as astrologers, we know, but then we're people too. And
right, every now and then we got our little blind sides too, right?
Right. And then I'm like, oh, you know, he's got Mars and Cancer. You got to let him have some retreat time.
Yeah, just let him go crawl back in his shell for a while. He'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah. Does he have a Mars-Saturn opposition in his chart?
Not quite.
Not quite.
No.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that is good.
That'd be difficult. LaFaye, this has been great fun.
Yeah, likewise. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll get you back on again sometime. Maybe we'll get you on when Libra rolls around and relationship is back in the air.
And you know, now Libra season, you did ask me earlier, was there another time that I was really busy and that eluded me? Libra season, most definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It's big time relationship.
Strong transits in Libra. A lot more busier. People are reaching out more for.
Oh, you'll be very busy this year with Mars and Aries. Trust me. Mars is going to be in Aries most of the year, so it's going to be opposing a lot of those Libra aspects.
Well, look, guess who has Mars on the 7th? So what advice you have for me?
What's that?
I have Aries on the 7th house.
Oh, so you do?
Yeah. What advice you have for me?
Oh, you're going to have Mars in your 7th house for, boy, you're going to be a tiger.
Uh-oh, don't say that.
Be good. No, be a good tiger. Yeah, but here,
I don't want to be combative. So
I think here's what I think about Mars. If you can use Mars and get into it, it's a great ally. It's a great ally. So this is what I tell people: you either use Mars or get used by Mars, right? So if you've got a transit of Mars going through your 7th house, you got to work with your partner. I mean, you got to work out, you got to do things together, you got to build together, or else that Mars will become argumentative and conflict oriented.
It's funny you should say that. We have talked about exercising more together, you know, a health regimen, things like that. So I'll apply that energy more to partners. Well,
with Mars in your 7th house, it's a good time for it. Now remember, he's going to have Mars squaring his Mars. You're going to have Mars squaring your Mars. Right. So that's going to be a creative dynamic for the two of you to really pull together, right? So in astrology, you know about this, you know, reconciling the opposition is the midpoint. So you're going to have that midpoint with Mars and Aries in that T-square with your two Marses. It could be a very dynamic time if you guys want to pull together and really create and do things together. It could be very, you know, you only got to watch out for is a little bit of ego struggle or ego clash. Yeah. You'll be fine. Yeah. Especially with those moons. With those moons, you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's always our saving grace. But yes, I'm glad you pointed that out. I would just be like consciously using that Mars energy to do partnership-oriented things. You know?
That's right. Yeah.
Some things that we've been wanting to do together.
Yeah. Well, listen, I hope you have a great spring and summer. Let's see if we can get you back in the fall, and I'll check in on that Mars transit for you. See how it's going.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let me go back over here. Where are we? Get into, let's do this mode. Hold on. You do gallery view. There we go. All right. So everybody knows where you can get a hold of LaFaye. Of course, you can you can connect with her through Facebook as well. My Facebook page, her Facebook page. You got the data. Thanks again, LaFaye, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
See this? Here we go. All right. Guess it's just me now. How about that? Move over here and move. There we go. All right. That was pretty cool, huh? LaFaye Farrar. Man, it's been a long time since I connected with her. And she's still doing her work. And you can check out her book. Her book is on the internet. You can find it in various places and spaces. Let's see what we have here in the chat room. I finally got rid of Pluto and Saturn, and I get Jupiter and Mars. A lot of thank you. Libyans. Thank you, LaFaye. Cancer does not approach directly. Watch a crab. Absolutely. All right. So far, so good. That was good, right? Very informative. Excellent. You know, I wanted to get her on for Valentine's Day, but she was working. And then of course, I'm going to reschedule with Ra, and we're gonna do something different than what we had planned on doing. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll just leave it at that. We're going to have a very interesting show that we're going to be putting on, and it's going to be in 2 weeks. So I just wanted to get in some other. Do you guys want to do a little more astrology here tonight? I got a few more things we can talk about. What do you think? You guys want to hear some more? Want to do some more astrology tonight? Let's see, what do we have here? Silly Sidewinder crap. I got a Mars square to, my Mars is an interesting aspect of my chart. It squares my sun, which is a bit combative. But I do have a Mars trine to Venus in my chart. The Mars-Venus trine. And a Mars trine to Chiron. Got a grand trine with Chiron, Mars, and Venus. What did Marvin Gaye call that aspect? Sexual healer? No, I'm just kidding. But it's it's interesting because Mars and Venus are the masculine and feminine. Chiron, I think I've got an interesting ability to kind of move in both those worlds with Chiron. Anyway, why don't we look at the week ahead? Let's do that. And then I'm going to get into Mercury retrograde a little bit. It was awesome having LaFaye on there tonight. Okay. All right. This is the week ahead. The astrological week ahead. To 1620. There it is. There's a method to my madness here and why I've actually put this up. So you'll see the week ahead. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop into the chart of the moment. And then we're going to get into a little Mercury retrograde as kind of a sub aspect here. Let's see what we got. Let's go up here. Okay, so I'm going to fire up the chart of the moment. Here it is. Right there. Bada bing. All right, so right now we're right at the 29th degree of Virgo. So my sun is right here, ironically. But these are the aspects that we really want to pay attention to for the week ahead. Here we've got this moon in Sagittarius, which was kind of cool because when LaFaye and I were talking about being on tonight, and I realized she had moon in Sagittarius and sun in Sagittarius. It's like, oh, well, the moon is in Sag. It's a good night for you to be on this show. Tomorrow, when you get up, however, this moon is going to move into a closer square with Neptune. And, with the moon is, it's a tree. It's a very transitory energy. In Sagittarius, we're looking for emotional authenticity. being emotionally honest. And with the trine with Venus, obviously tonight there would have been a lot of interest in relationship and emotion because we have this nice trine going on here. By the time tomorrow rolls around, it's going to get into the middle and latter degrees of Sagittarius. So it'll start to separate from Venus, this hot Venus in Aries. But tonight and tomorrow, there is a very powerful call to bond on an emotional level. And there's also a very intense kind of conflict here with this Moon-Neptune conjunction, Moon-Neptune square, which again has to deal with emotional authenticity and being clear and being honest, because there seems to be the potential for attraction with this Moon in Sagittarius trining Venus, and it's instant, right? You get into fire signs, it's just instant. It's hot. The Earth trines tend to take time. There's a sense of kind of grounding and balance, and stepping into or stepping off of or onto terra firma, but that's not the case with the fire signs. When the fire signs, it's instant and it's powerful. So we're dealing with some very strong and powerful emotional attraction tonight and even moving into tomorrow a bit. But again, when you step into your Monday gig, if you're going to be going to work tomorrow's President's Day, right? Dealing with emotional authenticity and honesty is going to be critical. Now, here's Mercury. It's going to be right at 12 degrees here, and it's going to go retrograde. I'm going to do a little subsection on Mercury retrograde as well. But the moon is key just with these aspects. So one of the things that you want to be able to do tomorrow is, and we're starting off the week now because Monday is an important day for a lot of people that are 9 to 5 people, or even just out of 9 to 5. It's a bit of the resets, right? On Monday, so be clear on what you're feeling. Be clear on what you're feeling. And if you have to be able to share what you're feeling, even if it's potentially in conflict with some other issues or aspects or dynamics in your life. And the moon squared Mercury makes it a bit difficult in a lot of ways. Pisces is the sun that likes to hang out, hide out, and avoid. And that is not the energy of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is clearly not very avoidant. So this is how we're starting off the week. We're starting off the week with this energy that's connected to passion and kind of being straightforward with others in relationship. And at the same time, trying to get clear with how we feel, how we communicate, and how we perceive how others feel about us, which may not be the same way that we feel about the other, potentially. Mars just went into Capricorn. It's at 0 degrees, and it's going to be there until roughly the end of March. So this is a really powerful time in terms of accomplishment, in terms of getting things done. So LaFaye is going to have her Mars return. The one thing that I'm a bit concerned about here, and this gets into kind of the global view of astrology, is that the South Node is right here. And we're dealing, for all intents and purposes, with an army of Capricornian forces here. And, looking at the big picture, looking at what's going on with the so-called coronavirus and what we're seeing now begin to explode across the globe. If you can pick up the alternative news. By the way, Zero Hedge got banned from Twitter because Zero Hedge was posting about the weaponization of the coronavirus. Twitter didn't like that very much. And when that happens, you have to wonder why Twitter didn't like it. Is it because it's stirring up fear, or is it communicating the truth? Here we go. This is the Moon-Neptune square. This is the Moon square to Mercury. Pisces tends to be avoidance. Sagittarius tends to be very outward in its expression. for authenticity, morality, and truth. Now, we just had Mars mobilize, and I'm using the word mobilize specifically in Capricorn because it's going to gain steam, and it's going to gain steam over the next 5 to 6 weeks. And here we go. It's going to ultimately conjunct Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn. And while we're going through this quote unquote corona crisis, the transit of Mars is going to be really important. Really, really important. Because if there is a mobilization, if there is a call to quarantine beyond the borders of Wuhan or Shanghai or Beijing, Mars is going to play a role. Mars will assume the duty of being the martial force that is being activated and summoned here. Remember, too, that when we get to the end of March, beginning of April, Mars is going to be in Aquarius. And Mars in Aquarius is a very unusual energy. It is martial without a lot of feeling, right? It's sort of like it's making scientific or quote unquote fact-based decisions. It's not a very warm expression of Mars. And Aquarius represents science. So could this be some form of combating this virus with Mars in Aquarius? Or will Mars in Aquarius wind up targeting group energy? So this transit of Mars is going to be very, how do I say this? Tricky in some ways. Like we're going to have to really watch this transit of Mars, especially over the first 2 weeks, because it's going to be conjuncting the South Node in Capricorn. Just keep our eyes on it. Keep our eyes on what's happening, with these sort of global edicts, or the edicts that are going to be dispatched from these Capricornian agents, which tend to be governmental, right? Aquarius is not governmental. Aquarius is group oriented. And Aquarius represents things like the UN. Okay. Just keep that in mind. It is also very rebellious. Mars in Aquarius can be quite rebellious. So we're in a very interesting Mars cycle. Let's put it that way. And if we continue to kind of scale this out and watch Mars go into Pisces, which it will be during the springtime, it's going to be very interesting. Very interesting. And especially with the conjunction with Neptune, which is a ways off. But Mars is going to be a player. And it's going to be a big player because, again, it's dealing with outer signs, which tend to include larger groups of people, either corporate and or governmental and group oriented. So just keep tracking Mars. In your chart, wherever Mars is, that's where you want to spend some time and energy. And I've got to have Mars transit in my second house. So I've got a lot of work to do, obviously. We also have some squares going on here. We've got a Saturn square happening with Uranus, and it's moving into closer square, right? And then Pluto is already there in square with Uranus. Now Uranus is going to pick up a little bit of steam, begin to move slightly away from Pluto, but Saturn's going to be right there. And Saturn will be wind up squaring Uranus for most of the year. And that's a tricky square because we're dealing with the forces of liberation and the forces of this kind of radicalized energy. And Saturn wants to basically contain it and bring it back in. So we're working with energies that are at cross purposes. One wants order and the other wants some form of disorder to be able to break the pattern and, to a large extent, express itself in unique and unconventional ways. It's going to be very interesting. I mean, especially if the corona protocols tend to get tighter. And if they get tighter, this Saturn square to Uranus is going to be very evident as a result of that. Keep that in mind. Jupiter right now is look like sextiling Neptune, a bit of a sextile with Mercury, although that's going to begin to separate as Mercury retrogrades and goes backwards. Jupiter Neptune sextiles can be compassionate. They can be compassionate. There can be spiritual potential with a Jupiter Neptune sextile. How you can work with it in your own life, I would say that it could help you be a better person. And I mean that. I mean that. And right now, even though there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of conflict brewing in our own lives, being a better person can be very helpful. It may not pay off for you now, especially with Capricorn, but it could pay off for you later. We got a Mars trine right here with Uranus. Things can move very quickly with a Mars-Uranus trine. Very, very quickly. So from a global perspective, Mars can really take off here and move into position rather rapidly. From a personal perspective, again, let's define it as getting shit done. Get shit done, but be unique about it. Use technology, right? Find use for technology to help you become streamlined and more potent in your execution, right? Get to it. Don't be afraid of technology here. Let's see. Anything else? Anything else? I just wonder a little bit here about Pluto squaring Uranus and the supply chain and manufactured goods. I think the cost of goods is going to go up, obviously. The cost of doing business is going to go up, especially as Jupiter gets closer to Pluto, and it will conjunct Pluto. I'm definitely seeing that. And then what do we got? 3 days from now, we've got Sun entering into Pisces. That's going to be midweek. So we have Sun in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces. There's going to be a lot of feeling going on. A lot of feeling going on this week. When the moon moves into Capricorn, roughly, 2 days from now, it'll be a bit better. But again, the moon is afflicted in Capricorn. It's going to be part of this whole cadre of Capricornian planets. Sometimes that moon in Capricorn can just be matter of fact, especially with that conjunction with Mars. I think this week's going to be a very interesting week to pay attention to the global story of coronavirus and where governments are going to chime in on this thing. It's going to be an interesting end of February and all the way through March, especially with this Mercury retrograde, which we're going to look at. All right, let me check in with you guys. Let's see where you're at in chat. Sleeting right now. How about that? I don't think China shut down half the country for the flu, just saying. I kind of think it's setting the stage for a real planned pandemic. I remember I was talking to getting the swine flu vaccine. Woo! Well, you're still with us, thank God. Let's see what else. Please take down the grid. It sucks where I live. It doesn't rain every day, but it's cloudy just about every single day. There's been a lot of cloud cover, a lot of fog, a lot of dark skies for sure. Heather says Pluto and Saturn are conjunct my moon right now. Well, you're fun to be around. You are. I like you, Heather. You're a good person. It was a beautiful sunny 65 degrees today in Arkansas. Nice. Yeah, I shopped online and had stuff delivered rather than go to the store. Orders over $35, free shipping and handling. Yeah, you may want to, you may want to get a few things. Things like batteries, for instance, many of which are actually created in China. You may want to get some batteries just to have them around. There are a few other goodies. You know what you need. I'm not gonna belabor the point, but this is going to be a very interesting week in terms of what's going to happen with Corona. I would say with that chart, you're going to see escalation on a government level. If your heart is pumping, you're not exempt or denied any good stuff. I like that. After you get to April, then maybe I will be out of the woods. Chemtrail galore for the last 3 days. Yep, they have been pumping. They've been pumping the aerosol in the skies. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's been happening. All right, let's get into Mercury retrograde a little bit. Let me throw up my Mercury retrograde graphic for you guys. I went and put together a nice little Mercury retrograde graphic. Because I'm doing my best to live up to my Virgoan sun sign here. I just have to find the damn thing. All right, here we go. All right, let's look at the details for Mercury retrograde. So with Mercury retrograde from February 17th to March 10th, and then the shadow phase is going to be till March 31st. And I believe the shadow phase is when, if I'm not mistaken, Mars goes into Aquarius. So Mercury retrograde is going to impact all the mutable signs. We got Virgo, we got Sag, Pisces, and Gemini. Now, in order to understand this Mercury retrograde, I think we have to understand Mercury in the sign of Pisces. And Pisces tends to be a very subjective sign. All the water signs tend to be subjective. With Pisces, I think maybe being the most subjective. I think of Pisces as in many cases quite easily wounded. Scorpio is easily wounded, but they usually wound back. Cancer is easily wounded, but they'll just crawl in their shell. When Pisces is wounded, there's not a lot of escape, or so it feels. So one of the things that we get to look at with this Mercury retrograde in Pisces, and it's in second decan, which is putting it in that Cancerian decan, that we get to look at our own relationship with feeling wounded, or we get to look at our own relationship around how we internalize suffering and internalize our pain or another person's pain. We get to revisit what that looks like. And for some of us, see, this is where it gets really interesting with the mutable signs. For some people, if they haven't been in touch with empathy or suffering, a Mercury retrograde can get them to have to revisit that and kind of recalibrate their relationship with it. So if somebody tends to be super cool, super austere, not really giving a fuck about things in a lot of ways, this Mercury retrograde in Pisces is going to bring some stuff up for that individual, because you get to rethink your relationship with pain and suffering and feeling wounded, all the Piscean attributes. Now, if you're a person who is prone to feeling empathy or you're prone to feeling somebody else's suffering, then the Mercury retrograde will get you to reconsider what you're thinking about and what you're spending your feeling body on. You may have to consciously step away from situations that are continuously bringing up suffering or pain or grief, okay? So a lot of this depends on, because Pisces is a sign that represents duality. If you look at the sign, it has duality built into it. It's a very wide spectrum of duality. You know, you have the omega, like the top of Pisces is the omega point. The beginning of Pisces is the alpha point. You have the crown chakra, which is the top of Pisces. And then you have the root chakra, which is the bottom of Pisces. You have Kether and Malkuth. You want to play with or use some representation with the Kabbalah. They're all part of that Piscean duality, but it's a duality that it's a multidimensional, omnidimensional duality, but we see it in terms of hierarchies in a lot of ways with Pisces and everything that exists in between, because that is the field of the duality. You know, another aspect of Pisces duality is the hero and the goats. You know, and the goat's not the greatest of all time. The goat is somebody who wears the goat horns and does something that's not very heroic in a lot of ways. So there's duality in there. There's a lot of duality inside of that spectra of Pisces. And we're going to see, again, with Mercury retrograde, our relationship with the so-called duality, right? And where you are on that continuum. So that's a basic and fundamental interpretation. The retrograde motion gets you to think about what you feel, how you experience suffering, how you experience another person's suffering. And if you're completely cold-hearted, and in this world, I think it's quite easy in a lot of ways, and some people may not even be conscious of it. Some people may just become conditioned to being cold-hearted or cool or even /cruel. This is the type of world we're living in now. Because in a lot of ways, to open oneself up to real emotion and real feeling can be quite dangerous, especially in the online space where a lot of people tend to hang out. You can get crushed online if you put your feelings out there, where you say the wrong thing in the wrong place. I mean, Twitter is merciless in this regard. So a lot of people have been socially engineered in a lot of ways to become much cooler. And I don't want to say that they've been socially engineered towards some kind of sociopathology, but I do believe that that's the case, especially with the really dark side of social media. There is a social pathological condition that people have been initiated into. Some of it has to do with the anonymity, theoretical anonymity. Like, you don't have to sit across from somebody and say something to them that's going to have that piss them off, right? So people have been able to vicariously offload their shit onto people or to project. So this is part of that conditioning, the social conditioning that's taking place. And I see this a lot with youth in a lot of ways. Like, some youth are really hardened. They're very hardened. And it has to do with the fact that, there's just, this is the way this thing has been kind of assembled right now. But with the Mercury retrograde and moving backwards, I think people will have an opportunity to kind of look at where they are in that place. Like, it has the potential for kind of readjusting and rebalancing some level of humanity. Also, when we get into Mercury retrograde, especially in Pisces, we've got to be able to look at how we share information. By withholding information, are we being truthful? That's going to be, I think, a theme with Mercury retrograde in Pisces. You have to really, sometimes it's important to withhold information. I don't think you have to tell everybody everything, especially if it's, something that another person doesn't really need to hear. But there are other times when, this quality of omission can be very, very dangerous and even toxic. So the Mercury retrograde in that regard gets us to look at about, what we withhold or what we don't talk about, especially in the sign of Pisces, because it's a very powerful emotional channel. The other thing with Mercury retrograde in Pisces, which is also, I think, quite important, is for us to re-examine our relationship with spirituality, because Pisces tends to be the quote-unquote most spiritual sign, which I do believe it is in a lot of ways. So we get to look at, is our relationship with spirituality just mental? Do we have just a mental construct? Are we just living through our head? Or is it calling us to go deeper with our quote-unquote relationship with spirituality? It's going to be a very interesting retrograde. I don't think it's going to be an easy retrograde. I'm going to be straight up, especially with for the mutable signs, Virgo, Sag, Pisces, Gemini people. I think this could be challenging, very, very challenging. So we're talking about looking at your humanity, your empathy. And again, for people that tend to emote a lot or tend to identify so much with, their circumstances in their life, this Mercury retrograde could be kind of good. It could help you kind of back off and maybe kind of see your place and your position from a different perspective. Maybe your suffering isn't as acute or intense as another person's suffering, right? It could give you that kind of perspective. Also, this is a time where people, I feel, if you wanted to get off of a substance, this could be a very, very good time to do that. For some people, they may not have a choice. If what I am hearing is true around the supply chain with China, and Mercury is retrograde, and I would say 95% of our drugs are made in China, which is probably the case based on my research as of late, then that Mercury retrograde means that that pharmaceutical channel is going to be shut down, and it's not going to be moving forward. So for some people with this Mercury retrograde, it can be very difficult, especially if they run out of something that their doctor or the hospital or whomever, right, has said, you got to take this thing. Now, again, I'm a fan of homeopathy and naturopathic medicine, and I just think that we're not meant to be taking 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pills. It's terrible. And looking at some of the stuff in recent memory that they've actually prescribed for people, like statins, they're very damaging, incredibly damaging. So I'm not an advocate for Western medicine. But I will say this, that there are people that have been on Western medications now, whether they're statins or even psychotropic drugs, and if they can't get them, they're going to be in trouble. You're going to see people have a very, very difficult time. And I took a little bit of heat on Facebook. I would call it heat. It'd be like people would say, well, we don't need that shit anyway. Who needs that stuff? Well, I agree with that. But in the interim, it could be really heavy sledding for some people. Very heavy sledding. So this is also an aspect of Mercury retrograde in Pisces that people need to take into account. Now, if you have a substance that you want to get rid of in your life, whether it's alcohol or tobacco or some kind of a drug, Mercury retrograde and Neptune could be good for that. Could help you kick something, right? So this is going to be a very interesting Mercury retrograde. In terms of the Sabian symbols, and I was looking at some of the Sabian symbols for this retrograde, and they're quite interesting. And I have them up here real quick. Let me just do a quick screen shift share to the Sabian symbols. They're very interesting symbols. They're quite high and fairly elevated here. So let's start. Usually these things come in trinities, right? The threes. So here we have Pisces 12, which is where Mercury is now, which is in the sanctuary of an occult brotherhood. Newly initiated members are being examined and their character tested. So this is an interesting symbol for this degree of Mercury. So there will be spiritual tests here during this Mercury retrograde. Spiritual tests. Expect to be spiritually tested. The ever-repeated challenge presented to the individual by the group in which he has claimed acceptance, the challenge to prove himself and his ability to assume responsibility effectively, okay? So occult brotherhood, I just want to clarify that. This definition is from Dane Rudyard, and he saw himself as an earthly adept of the great white brotherhood, you know, this spiritual group which oversaw the spiritual evolution of man dwelling in these higher dimensional planes, straight out of theosophy. So you can't, in a lot of ways, disentangle Dane Rudyard from this affiliation. Let me continue to read. At any level of activity, sooner or later, life itself demands of the individual that he or she stand up clearly and unequivocally to the ideal he himself has declared publicly his own. This is interesting. At the occult level, the testing seems to be controlled and irrevocable. The initiate has become a constituent part of an integrated field of mental spiritual activity. He is therefore controlled by the structural order of the group. He is no longer seeking, having found his place. He must prove himself able to fulfill the function associated with it. He is no longer free as an individual. He has become part of an integral whole operating under the structural principles of immense antiquity. So the immense antiquity and the structural principles are these spiritual principles that are handed down through time, through millennia, that in many ways would be fixed, unmovable. This second stage of the unfoldment stands in contrast to the first, that the individual is now bound by collective laws and traditions. At a mundane political or business level, he is the junior executive, incorporated into a hierarchical institution. He has at all times to prove his worth. Qualification is an apt keyword. This next symbol is also quite interesting, and this is where Mercury is headed in the retrograde motion. Men traveling a narrow path seeking illumination. So these degrees of the Sabian symbols tend to have very overt spiritual implications. The capacity inherent in every individual to seek whatever cost entrance to a transcendent realm of reality. Now, if you look at it this way, you would start at 11, right? And be traveling a narrow path, seeking illumination. And then it could lead to Pisces 12, which the individual finds themselves in the sanctuary of an occult brotherhood. Right? So there is an interesting sequential order to these Sabian symbols, which were not created or divined sequentially. Just keep that in mind. This refers to the ancient and eternal symbol of the path of discipleship. The greatness of man is that he can always be greater, and the belief deeply rooted in men's inner nature that if he fulfills the necessary conditions, he can find the elder brothers. See, this is where it goes to. But now we're walking backwards here. Who have already attained a higher level of consciousness and will transfer their attainment and light to him. The path is always open to the pure in heart, the mentally aware, the conqueror of emotions, and the spiritually self-mobilized. This symbol opens the 69 five-fold sequence in a new level of consciousness. Man is always in the making and remaking. He can always go further, reach beyond, but he has to take the first step. Someone can show him the path. He alone can do the walking. Thus, the Zen injunction, walk on. So again, if we see this in terms of Mercury retrograde in motion, it's moving away, right? It's moving away from perhaps groups or identities that you have connected with to some degree. And it's going backwards. This Mercury retrograde is taking us backwards and kind of re-examining where we came from, so that when there is the walk forward, we're seeing the pieces that maybe we dropped or missed along the way, because these degrees will be re-encountered once again when Mercury does go direct, and it does go eventually, comes back to that place where it went retrograde, the shadow, and the whole 9 yards, the shadow being on the 31st of March. So the 31st of March will be an interesting time, because then it would indicate perhaps that there is a new path, or a resuming of the path with a different kind of resolution and a different kind of awareness and perception. It's interesting. And even this degree, Pisces 10, an aviator pursues his journey flying through ground obscuring clouds. It's about mastery. Right, so these 3 degrees here are very interesting degrees. And this is the one where Mercury is beginning to go retrograde on. So in ending, my feeling around this Mercury retrograde is that there'll be spiritual tests along the way. There'll be an opportunity for individuals to retrace their steps, and even to be able to retrace your own life. Like, how did you get to where you are today? What led you to this moment in time? And also, this is an interesting part as well. What or who played a role in your getting to where you are now that may have been beneficial for you, but you may have judged them or put them in a place where you thought that whatever they did was contrary to your own best interests. And as a result of that, could have a very challenging relationship with that person or that event. This Mercury retrograde might shed a different light on that, and may actually be quite humanizing in a lot of ways. So these are all things that you may want to take into account and take into effect. It's a lot there. And of course, we'll be checking in with each other. We'll check in next Sunday night. We'll see where people are and how the retrograde is going and all the stuff that goes along with it. All right, let me get back into the chat room. By the way, that was Mercury retrograde. There we are, back with the right window. Okay, what do we have here? Leap year this year. Oh, yeah, that's right. February 29th, a special birthday. Yeah, it's a once in a 4-year birthday. Is that right? I don't get this stuff. It's Greek to me. It's okay. What else do we have? Re-examining parameters we put to place that were false from the onset, revise and remember. Yes, very good. I think it's a good one, Dawn. Yep. I work for the Gov. That's all I'll say. Laugh out loud. Okay. I keep trying to quit CM. I'm working on moving on. I must be a masochist at heart. What is CM? What is CM? I'm wearing a sigil of Saturn necklace because of what my mom told me recently. Oh, that's interesting. My job is kind of like a psych hospital. Here we go. Hey, there's my man. Masake, what's happening, man? Good to see you. What else? What else? This group is alert to that sort of stuff. What are we talking about now? I'm staying away from hospitals. That would be a good thing, by the way. I have to say that. Staying away from hospitals with a Mercury retrograde in Pisces, very good call. Very good call. I would agree with that 100%. All right. I'm out of here. I am out of here. Let's see what we have. Things are changing very quickly. Masaki doing business. I love it. Nah, I don't want to navel gaze. I ain't have to navel gaze. There's no rules. Not that way. I agree with Dawn. In fact, we both know what is going on within the memberships in a lot of different groups. How will this retrograde affect the 2020 political election? Well, that's a really good question. Well, Bernie Sanders is a Virgo, so I would assume it would affect Bernie Sanders on some level. Although there's very little dirt on Bernie Sanders. So it's not gonna be like this crazy revelation around, I mean, what you see mostly with Bernie is what you get. You know his voting record. He pussed out when it came to the election 4 years ago. Maybe that might come up. That might come up a bit. He might get some of that. There may be, if these primaries continue to kind of, go on, he might get questioned on that. That's quite possible. I'm a bit more concerned about the Venus retrograde and the eclipse on the 5th of July, and that Mars transit into Aries. I think that's really going to be the hot spot. For Trump, Trump is late Leo rising, first house Virgo. Mercury is going to be in his 7th house of relationships and partnerships. It's going to be agreements. That'll be agreements. So it could be either agreements that Trump has made with other people that he's reneging on, or vice versa. So that could be interesting. He is a mutable cyclone with that Sun and Uranus conjunction in the sign of Gemini, and his moon in the sign of Sagittarius, eclipsed with Mercury retrograding. Well, it won't be quite retrograding, because both those, the Sun and Uranus, are like in the 20, 24 degrees, so it won't be quite there. But kind of get out of that. But Neptune is moving closer and square with his Sun and his moon. And that can be tricky. That can be very, very tricky. And he's coming around for that third Saturn opposition. And if we have an election, I don't see anybody defeating him unless they, rig the election and somehow throw Mike Bloomberg with Hillary Clinton by his side. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's a possibility. And if we have an election, and there's my qualifier, I think Trump is a slam dunk, and it's based on what's going on with his chart. Now that 4 years after that, that's a whole other story, a whole other question, because that's when he gets into that square with Neptune to his Sun and his moon, and then the Saturn opposition going on, which is usually when people flip, right? They have to do kind of a pole shift in their life with that Saturn opposition. So it'll be interesting to see, no doubt. But I would say for now, with Mercury in Pisces, the one who I think would probably get hammered the most would probably be Bernie Sanders. And him having to, I think, answer to charges about what happened. Or maybe, he has to come clean about what really happened during the DNC. Because I think that there are a lot of questions that are unanswered there. I mean, we saw what happened. We saw how the whole thing got stolen from him. But what we don't know is how he really dealt with it and feels about it, and how his own people can trust him to not do something like that again. It didn't show a lot of fortitude on his part. And I think there's some Bernie people who are just Bernie people because they're tired of shit. But I think there are concerns there about that. And maybe they'll come up with this Mercury retrograde in Pisces. All right. Good question. I think I am done. I'm out of here for the night. me just say, what else do we have here? Dancing with Masako Link. Yeah, these virtual hugs won't give you, that's good. I like that. Bernie had a black eye. He got the message. Yeah, they beat the hell out of him, didn't they? Young folks, left coast, have Bernie stickers. Hi, Lisa. Nice to see you. Okay. Yes, he did have a black eye. Yeah, he got paid a little visit. Bernie got paid a little visit before the national convention where he surrendered his delegates to Hillary Clinton. You know, they paid him a visit. Old school. They went old school on Bernie. Yep. All right. Hey, listen, I'll be back. I was thinking about doing a show tomorrow, talking about presidents. I don't know. We'll see. If I don't talk about it tomorrow, I'll definitely talk about it on Tuesday, but I'll be back on Tuesday. And we'll see you here next Sunday night for AstroLive. Again, I want to thank LaFaye Farrar for being on the show, being a very gracious guest and sharing her insight with us. Some of you have subscribed to this channel and helped out over on the robertphoenix.com side of things, and that's great. I encourage you to do that. It helps me keep things going here. Of course, I'll just continue to do what I do. You get some free goodies if you sign up, and for those of you who have signed up, I got a rush of people signed up, so I have to work on the reports and get them out to you. But I'll get them out, especially tomorrow, since tomorrow is my off day. So I'll be working on a lot of that stuff. You'll be getting your 365 reports. That means if you sign up for the $10 or the $20 a month level, you get a whole year's worth of transits sent right to you, right? And then I'll be working on some webinars probably this week, and then you can be a part of them as well. I think at the $10 level, you get to attend one free webinar. $20 level, I think you get 2 free webinars. So anyway, there it is. And thank you everybody who signed up thus far. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thanks for being a part of tonight's show. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay fluid, stay human. Bye for now.